Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, let me introduce myself and my teammates. My name is Ayu Atikah, the captain of this group. And my teammates, first, our main vocal, Muhammad Akram. And the second is Rizka Dwi Damayanti. And the third is Aulia Raudatul Jannah. And the last is Sharras Darundas. So in this occasion, we will talk the topics about international trade. Before going to explain about our team, I will explain about what is trade. Trade is central to ending global poverty. Countries that are open to international trade tend to grow faster, innovate, improve productivity, and provide higher income and more opportunities to their people. So if we say the economics that are open to trade grow faster, that is true. Openness to international trade is essential for rapid economic growth in the developing countries. Accordingly, almost all developing countries have grown rapidly by simultaneously increasing export and import under open trade policies or trade policies regime. In 1970s, but the achieved rapid growth while opening up their economies. Besides Beside industrial countries also enjoyed rapid growth from the mid-1950s to the mid-1970s, while dismantling their high post-World War II trade barriers and embracing new technologies. So, next paragraph will be delivered by Shannas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayu. The next paragraph is the importance of openness itself is because it can afford access to the best technology from another countries. Then, make another countries to specialists in what they do best, then produce everything on their own. For example, the fall of the Soviet Union because they don't do any openness for their country. The two things that severely hurt Soviet Union are the sectors were not meeting what people need, since the USSR's planned economy had failed to make accurate prediction, and it shows why it's important to be open to the international trade. The next paragraph is for Aulia Raudatul Jannah. Thank you.
Okay, the last paragraph. Of course, the need for other police as additional incentive for the open trade sector. Therefore, what happens in some countries that do not pay attention to additional police issue regarding of the trade does not get the expect benefit, but is but it does not deny that there are also benefit from this open trade as a country that is successful in carrying it out. That's all for me.
Okay, that is all from us. The conclusion of this presentation will be delivered by Akram. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ayu. So before we jump into the conclusion, let me tell you about our argument. So first, uh, to back up this summary, we provide you our argument, which is to further describe why we are agreed to this motion. First, increased economic resources. The mostly common measure of country openness to international trade mostly came from the openness index, which adds import and export in goods and service, and divide this sum by GDP or gross domestic product. And then, based from the World Bank Trade Pulse block, it concludes that the larger ratio, the more the country is exposed to international trade. Developing country can be benefit from the free trade by economic resources. Free trade agreements ensure small nations can obtain the economic resources needed to produce consumer goods or service. And the second one is the openness to international trade brings some competitive spirit. Based on the research from a book titled Cogent Economics and Finance by Yahya Keho, or the professor of economics from Harvard University in 2017, the competitiveness from each country to reach its peak in economical state will allow the countries to develop even more, and the result of the research have confirmed that empirical interdependence among the trade components, trade openness, economic growth, and competitiveness, has been established that economic growth leads to the improvement of the trade openness, while competitiveness of the CEE region leads to the improvement of the economic growth, which is obviously disclose the validity of the theoretical insight. And the number three itself, the variety of opportunities. The competitiveness also determines how well it can convert the potential that openness offers into opportunities, such as innovative thinking. Competition makes the country think more innovatively, which is necessarily for the growth of the economical state. And then quality service. Countries are now able to acknowledge about international standards and reach the higher quality work easily. And third, better knowledge about the people preferences around the world. And then last but not least, better motivation. The potential for gains to growth, innovation, job creation, and development through win approach of trade and competitiveness lay before the openness to the trade itself. And then let me go into the conclusion. So in conclusion, based from some research that we did earlier, it's safe to say that we are totally agree with the report. There's a bigger chance for developed countries to beneficially grow faster if they were open to the international trade because it will increase the economic resources, bringing out competitive spirit, which makes any country being more innovative. And from the status quo itself, it is clear that no country has developed successfully in modern times without harnessing economic openness to international trade, investment, and the movement of people. This is especially relevant for smaller countries, as rarely has any country with less than 10 million people reached high income status with less than 50% of export in GDP or gross domestic product. And the production of parts and components that previously took place in a single factory or in a single country is now dispersed internationally. These global value chains or GVCs offer developing economy in avenues to engage in the global economy in ways not previously possible. And also, last but not least, openness to international trade will allow countries to gain access to expand their markets and access goods and services that otherwise might not have been available domestically. As a result of the international trade, the market is more competitive. This ultimately results in more competitive pricing and brings a cheaper product home to the consumer. And I think that's all from us. It's safe to say that we all actually agree with the report that international trade bring more goods to the country. I think that's all from us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, so this is from group 2. Could I give an argument to you guys? Okay, so in the last paragraph of your exam, it said that a country who follows the closed trade policy regimes will miss the opportunity to increase or accelerating their economic growth. In fact, India and China could increase their economic even they follow the closed trade policy regimes. So what is the reason for it being said like that? Because I a little bit disagree about that statement. I thought that a country who follows the closed trade policy regimes could also achieve or get that opportunity to increase their economic growth. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so a good response from the group number 2. So I'm gonna answer their statement. So okay, in the last paragraph, I didn't say that they did not develop, but it just doesn't make a perfect development. I mean, it just make them slower to reach a better economic resources. And also, if you're talking about China and India, as an example that using a closed international using a closed trade system will allow them to increase their economy. So then let us bring another example such as Russia, UK, Australia, and United States that they use an openness to international trade and uh, they also developed even further and developed better and faster instead of India and China. Yes, we actually agree that China and India also developed, but they did not develop their economics as fast as the country that use openness to the international trade itself. So I think still uh, we still stick to our statement that international trade is good to the country itself. Is it clear? Group number two.
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, my name is Sekar Aulia cantika putri and I'm from Group 2. Let me introduce to you our member group. So the first is Muhammad syachzidan Karim and the second is Amellya marsyanda. The third is Lintang Maula Rofi and the last is Musdalifah. So now we want to discuss about which countries are more protectionist than poor ones. So the summary is this title is broad because, in the fact, the poor countries have higher tariff barriers than high-income countries. This is a way that poor countries trying to protect their economic sector. But not all of poor countries are protectionist. Some of them are even more open to trade market than rich countries. But the most but the most countries But the most countries that have the higher benefit from free trade is the countries that have a protection to their national economic sector because they are trying to protect their local market to keep going on, so their local economic sector not fail. And traditionally, rich economic countries are use anti-dumping policy to protect their economic sector. But now, both poor and developed countries are trying to learn anti-dumping policy. So the next speaker is Zidane.
Okay, thank you, Sekar. So right now I will explain my argument why poor countries are more protectionist than the rich one. In our opinion, there are several reasons why poor countries are more protectionist than the rich one. But in this presentation, I will just mention two arguments why poor countries are more protectionist than the rich one. So my first argument is protect their product standards. So poor countries want to protect their product standards. So things like strict environmental standard and then strict product safety standard, that kind of thing, as protectionist measures to protect against poor quality of goods coming into their country. They have been contaminated products or products that might be quite dangerous to consume. So to protect against a certain kind of standard and product coming to their country. The second one is protect their domestic employment. So if a government feels like domestic employment is going to suffer and there could be a massive structural unemployment problem, and if industries go into decline because how difficult it is to compete with firms abroad, they may decide to adopt protectionist measures to protect their employment or maybe to boost their employment as well. So that's all from me. Back to Sekar. Thank you.
Thank you, Zidane. And then the next speaker is Amel.
Okay, thank you, Sekar. Second argument is impact on poor countries. I don't really think it will get a impact to poor countries because the protectionist developed countries can exacerbate the global crisis. Protection is not only against trade but also to capital, and this has a huge impact on poor countries. That's it from me. I will give it back to Sekar.
Thank you, Amel. And then the next speaker is Mola.
Okay, hello. Can you hear my voice? Okay, okay. Economy is very closely related to life, and economy is also a measure of how rich or poor a country is. And in the world of trade, there must be import of goods and competition. However, poor countries control this better, protect their wealth and property. Poor countries are more protect, protected and independent with their expertise and wealth. Develop countries slowly. This is this with his strength and proof that he can build his country with his ability. And the truth of poor countries in the economy, then to the democratic and economic experiment, then to support trade protection. Maybe that's it. Uh, thank you.
Okay, and then the last speaker it will be delivered by Musdalifah.
Okay, so the conclusion is from the title really wrong. On average, poor countries have higher tariff barriers than income countries. We can see comparison the textile and clothes sector between poor and rich countries. But overall, the countries that stand to benefit most from greater competition and openness are those nations that are quick to engage in anti-dumping initiative, erecting trade barriers against countries that allegedly, but poor countries have anti-dumping measures. So why poor countries are more protectionist than
So that's all from group 2. If you have any question or arguments, you can unmute your mic. Thank you.
I, I, I'm Cindy Jagoje from Group 3. Would like to give response to the statements made by Group 2. So you said that it is not necessarily true that rich countries are more protectionist than poor ones, and that poor countries are actually, on average, more protectionist, in which they make they have more, on average they have more policies regarding uh, their own foreign foreign trade, right? And that they're more protectionists. Well, us from Group 3 have comprised a few data from Business Insider specifically. One of the richest countries that are actually one of the most rich country in the world is USA, right? As we know, and uh, USA actually, on average, are more protectionist than their poorer counterparts. Uh, in which way they um, so we believe that rich countries are actually uh, mostly are more protectionist than poorer ones, in which the USA, on average, they have really strict foreign policy regarding free trade, regarding trade, and they are considered to be more protectionist, in which they have higher tariff barriers. And uh, from one perspective, it is said that rich countries, especially the USA, is rich because they take protecting their in-house or national trade or national goods really seriously. So they actually also protect their product standards really nicely, and protect their local businesses really strictly. And this is why they are one of the richest
this is one of the reasons why national and local businesses in the USA tend to flourish more, and the fact that they have uh, one of one of the biggest economic growth, and they are one of the biggest countries in the world, uh, actually explains that rich countries uh, can be more protectionist than poor ones. So we disagree on this statement, and we agree with the author, and we agree with the statement that rich countries, they can be more protectionist than poor ones.
Okay, I will try to answer Cindy argument. We believe that both poor and rich countries have protectionists to their economic sector, but in this discussion, we we stand to the poor country because we know the word of trade is very broad. Let alone what rich countries do. But the poor countries itself does trade protection because it is not in a position to compete with the country's big trades. And this triggers on the development of the poor countries itself, not ne- necessarily. Also, the maximum rich countries will be more protectionist with because of the pace of capital flows and state the bet that will lead to a global crisis. That's it from me. Maybe my group members have a
I want to add more information about why poor countries are more protections than the rich one. So they don't have an equal footing. Poor countries don't have an equal footing in the competition, which is it is really harmful for poor countries because they don't get the maximum benefit of it. And um, and also poor countries should have or need privilege to join the competition. Like if we take an example, industrial of Malaysia. So the condition of the Malaysian automotive industry, they have an ambition to produce their own vehicle, but the problem is they couldn't promote their product due to complicated import requirement. While the developed countries could freely or easily export their own vehicles to Malaysia without any complicated export requirements. So that's all from me.
That's all from Group 2. Is that clear enough?
Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now it's group 3. And then before we explain about our argument or summary, let me introduce my team. First, Adelphia Agata, it's me as a leader of group 3. And then Cindy Angelica Wijaya, Nur Hikmah, Regina Indah, and then Muhammad Arsyad. And our topic about free trade in crisis for uh, wait property in the third world. And next, the summary will explain by Cindy.
Okay, thank you, Ade. So, through this article, Arvin Panagaria tried to assess his stance regarding an ongoing debate in the field of international trade about whether or not freer trade actually increases poverty in third world countries. So, there has been a debate among the scholars of international trade about if free trade actually makes third world countries more poor, and if whether or not free trade actually makes third world countries or damages are detrimental to the economics of these third world countries. Now, through this article, Padagarya makes his point clear that he did not agree with the assumption that the increase of poverty in third world countries is a direct consequence of them doing free trade. And in fact, he goes on to explain how free trade might actually help reduce poverty in third world countries through encouraging rapid economic growth. How that is achieved, it will be explained um, by my friend in the arguments. Thank you.
Okay, the argument will explain by Regina and Ade. Regina first.
Oke, suaraku kedengaran kah?
Kedengeran.
Okay. So, for the arguments, we believe that free trade can rapidly the economic growth. That's because historically, from time to time, countries that economically grow faster than the other countries can largely reduce their level of poverty, such as Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. And these countries, until today, are still dabbling in the field of free trade. But contrary-wise, countries that remain closed to trade experience no reduction in poverty in that period. Countries that remain closed to trade are India during 60s to 70s and Venezuela, the largest and most abundant oil reserves in the world. But unluckily, this surplus only making a lot of problems in the country, especially in the economy field. And Venezuela had previously set up its own economy with that much abundance of oil and totally of its own oil income. But because of the government avarice, the price dropped and Venezuela finally went bankrupt. That's all from me. The next argument will be given by Ade. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Regina. Guys, I'm sorry if my play is so noisy. And then the next free trade encourages more rapid growth through three channels. And you can see in the PowerPoint, I will to explain a short text about it. In short, it is a big economy activity that can have an effect on the economy below the small range. Yet the reality of this make it so easy for the rich that the lonely honest Bennett will be forget by the share of the construction that only the will enjoy more. Therefore, the pull up them should lead for to the system the accounts sector to the filter their own effects. This could be the direction more towards communities at a low economic levels with the government allocating income reverse to the countries will have a coally. This aim is to reduce poverty so the economic growth is more well organized. So we believe the free trade does not affect poverty. Complete size the trade function met our three objects. It has been shown the free trade has a purpose to promote eco- economic growth. That's from our argument. The next is conclusion will explain by Nur Hikmah and Arsyad.
Okay, can you hear my voice, guys? Test.
Ada kok.
Okay. The first of conclusion will be explained by me. The free trade doesn't actually increase poverty in third world countries, and in the fact, it is free trade that contributes to the reduction of poverty. The third is the increasing number of people is the issue that actually makes free trade seems less effective. Uh, okay, the next conclusion will be explained by Nur Hikmah.
Okay, thank you, Arshad. The next conclusion is many countries experience poverty due to an unstable and declining economy accompanied by a severely rapid increase of the number of population. It can be concluded that free trade will still be unable to overcome poverty if the population of a country continues to increase in number. I
I think that's all from me. I give back to Ade.
Okay, thank you. That's all from group 3. And about question or response, stage is yours.
I am Rizka Dwi Damayanti from Group 1. Want to give my group opinion about the presentation of Group 3. So our response is would agree if Group 3 said that is not true. If free trade increases poverty in the third world, because theoretically free trade can improve the quality of life for a nation's citizens. Nations can import goods that are not readily available within their borders. Importing goods may be cheaper for a developing country than attempting to produce consumer goods or service within their borders. And also according to the Asian Development Bank, the major causes of poverty include low economic growth, a weak agricultural sector, increased population rates, and a high volume of inequality.
Okay, thank you from group for the response because uh, your response is uh, wait. For the affirmative response is very inefful, and then you have same uh, tell tell uh, the science test question met our agree objective and has been shown the free test has a purpose to promote economic growth. And then we say again, thank you very much. Uh, it's from group 3, and then thank you.